Hello and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti. Let's review AEW's Double or Nothing that happened last night. Very interesting show. A lot of highs, a lot of lows. So let's get down to it. We'll start with the match that closed the show, the Stadium Stampede match. And Ralph, as our thumbnail says, in my opinion, this match was wildly entertaining. I don't know exactly if you could really consider this a wrestling match, but it was good. I liked it. I liked the comedy aspects of it. I liked the serious aspects of it. I liked the fact that the Inner Circle came in full football pads, football uniforms, and the Elite came in wrestling gear. It was like, to me, that was a connection of like Revenge of the Nerds, where you have Lambda, Lambda, Lambda versus the Alpha Betas. So, and in the end, the Lambda, Lambda, Lambda win. The Elite beat the Inner Circle. A lot of stuff to cover just in this match alone, Ralph. So what were your initial thoughts of the Stadium Stampede match?
Entertaining, for sure, is definitely the best word to use when talking about this match. I thought it was really well done. I thought that it was put together nicely, and I thought that it had a really good flow. And I find myself saying throughout the entirety of it, I don't know when this is going to end, but I just hope that it continues to keep going on. AEW to me usually seems like a lot of their big high profile matches, or even some of their matches that are on a smaller scale, sometimes the matches overstay their welcome. Mm-hmm. I felt like this was a longer match, if you want to consider it a match, but I was totally fine with it because it was put together so well.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there's going to be comparisons drawn between the Boneyard match, the Money in the Bank match, the match between John Cena and The Fiend. And I think that when we get out of this pandemic situation, we can actually get back to regular professional wrestling. People will look back on all of these matches as, something that's completely different outside of the box, but something that's necessary given the circumstances. Yes, AEW has done a really good job putting on these empty arena matches and shows. But WWE alike, even Impact had a match between Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan that had a little cinematics into it. So people walk away from this pandemic looking back on this and saying, those were different matches. They should be kind of kept in their own category, if you will.
Right.
Because I certainly wouldn't put that match, as good as it was, up against like a match like Cody and Dustin when discussing the best matches, so to speak, of AEW. But I thought this was awesome and fun.
Yeah, it definitely was fun. And I think AEW and WWE in the future will continue to do matches like this at big events, just because the reception of these matches, for the most part, have been good, whether that's WWE or AEW. And this match in particular, I think they did a really good job showcasing all 10 guys in specific spots. And they did it in such an entertaining way. I never felt tired. I never dozed off. I didn't feel like, my God, this is taking way too long.
Yeah.
And I was laughing throughout this whole thing. Sammy Guevara getting chased by a horse. The thing where Matt Hardy kept getting dunked into the pool and changing his character. I know Jim Cornette's probably going to have a conniption, an aneurysm, a stroke over that, because he didn't like when Matt Hardy did it in the street fight a couple weeks ago. He's probably going to hate it here too. The Ortiz overselling when he got the bell rung over his head. I mean, you got the two best sellers in professional wrestling, I believe, in Ortiz and Sammy Guevara in this match, and they knocked it out of the park with their selling job. They were the stars, I think, in this match.
Well, Sammy Guevara always finds a way to steal the show.
Yeah.
And he obviously was an intricate part to the ending of the match. And I love the way that they went through the rolling Northern Light suplexes. He was knocked out. And then eventually he got back up thinking he won the match, and then got chased with the golf cart, because you heard the golf cart being revved up, and then he looks behind him. And that's the thing. Like, yes, people are going to compare this to Money in the Bank and the Boneyard match. Boneyard match, entirely different to me because the tonality of it, everything surrounding the Boneyard match, it's just different. Money in the Bank, I think, is a more fair comparison. Now, Money in the Bank tried to add certain elements of comedy that AEW had in their match last night, but I don't think they necessarily were as successful. The golf cart part was awesome.
Yes.
Funny. The part with the horse was awesome. And just kind of comparing it, like, the thing with Vince, Daniel Bryan, and AJ was good, and that's probably one of the things that people are going to take away from that match and say it was good. But when you kind of look at like when Otis put the barbell on AJ, just obvious that it was so staged and gimmicked. That's the one thing that I took away from it. Like AEW did this, and it is probably comparable, but much better, much more fun, funnier, entertaining, whatever you want to call it. So Sammy Guevara and all the guys that were involved in this match, I thought they did a really good job.
Now, a lot of people that might be anti this match, calling it goofy, they might point at stuff like Chris Jericho challenging the pinfall with Aubrey Edwards and going into the challenge tent, or the fact that Matt Jackson got penalized for excessive celebration. What's the penalty for excessive celebration in a wrestling match? It's not like you can move the ball 15 yards like in football. But even stuff like that, it's so stupid that I found it hilarious. So
yeah, over the top.
Right. It was just over the top slapstick stupidity. I found entertaining. What'd you think of Hangman Page in this match? I mean, yes, he comes in a horse. That was awesome. But then for the majority of the match, he's hanging out at the bar drinking, and he actually has a sit down with Hager, has a shot of whiskey before they have their bar fight scene, which I thought was good.
I was going to say that was actually probably one of my favorite parts of the match was the bar fight scene.
Yeah.
I thought it was really well done. I thought it was fun. It was funny. Hangman Page to me is probably a guy that people can definitely get behind. I was expecting him to turn heel in this match and the Inner Circle to win, but obviously that didn't happen. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was really well done. The one thing that I would be concerned with, given the fact that this is supposed to be like a grudge match, like, yeah, there was a lot of comedy, there was a lot of silly, a lot of fun, and that's fine. It's good to have all that stuff, especially because it was entertaining. But you also have to think that there's a certain portion of the fan base that's going to say, well, it's almost too fun. It's almost too much comedy. Like, if these two groups are supposed to truly hate each other, is that the right tone for this type of match? So I'm sure some people are going to think that. I think eventually there'll probably be one more match in this feud, because I think I still want to see the War Games match. That would probably have a much more serious tone. This was what it was. It was entertaining, and I think that was the right approach here.
Right. I totally agree, especially with the week that wrestling fans have been going through with, some of the news that have come around, and last night being the anniversary of Owen Hart's death and the Dark Side of the Ring episode that came before that. So I thought this was a nice breath of fresh air. So great way to close out the show, but let's go back to the way the show started and work our way back to the end. And we'll start with the casino ladder match that started this show. We got, this match, everybody got their spots, but this match to me felt a little too long. I felt like there was some unnecessary things in this match. There were some things that were good in this match. To me, overall, though, I found it to be a minor letdown. I thought this was going to be a lot better than it was. Darby Allin, I don't know, due to injury or just how the match was planned out, was basically non-existent in this match. Same with Scorpio Sky. There really wasn't any big spots off the ladder outside of Darby Allin's skateboard spot. And we spent about 5 minutes of this match with Orange Cassidy trying to figure out how a ladder match works. I like Orange Cassidy. I like the lazy approach, but this to me was not lazy Orange Cassidy. This was stupid Orange Cassidy. Like, you could be lazy, but at least at 35 years old or 34 years old, how a ladder works. They made him look stupid, not lazy.
Well, we just talked about how his match with Rey Fenix was kind of like a breath of fresh air because they weren't necessarily promoting that aspect of his character.
Right.
Call it that.
Right.
Now, here's the problem I have. You pointed this out. So Scorpio Sky, Darby Allin, two guys that you would assume would be the future of AEW. You're wasting time with a silly gimmick for a guy that is liked by half your fan base or 75% of your fan base and then disliked by the rest of it. He's a controversial character that not everybody's going to get behind, no matter how bad people want to say, oh, well, he's a draw, he's this, he's that. Last night, what I saw, I mean, literally, when people talk about it being like a slap in the face to the industry and this and that, people make that argument all the time. I find it to be just so ridiculous. I thought it sucked the entire life out of the match because I thought they were on a good path. I thought it was going really well. And then he comes out, the ladder's fallen over 4 times and he can't figure out how to stand it up. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I try not to be overly analytic, but I would love for somebody to try and defend it, because to me it's just ridiculous. And it actually absolutely crushed the match, the flow of the match, because I think right before he came out, Darby Allin came out.
Yes, I believe Darby came out beforehand.
The match went to another gear because Darby was all over the place. And that's what you want. And then as soon as Orange Cassidy did that stunt, it kind of sucked the life out of the match for me.
Right.
I thought the match was long, like you pointed out, too many people getting their spots in that were unnecessary. I thought Brian Cage should have debuted, cleared the ring, climbed up, got the chip. That's it. That should have been it. So yeah, a lot of highs and lows in this match, but I think the highs were really good because Darby, for what it's worth, I guess looked pretty good when he was in there.
Brian Cage looked good too. Like Brian Cage came out, cleared house. I mean, they made him look as badass as they could in this ladder match. The fact that they had to pile all this stuff on him to eliminate him, gets through, ends up still winning. I thought he was good in this match. Darby, for the limited time he was in, was good. Obviously, they're setting up Brian Cage versus Darby now that Taz is involved. That's probably the high that I got out of this. Like I said, the match was a little long. Some, like you said, some guys probably shouldn't have gotten spots that got them. Like, do we really need Jimmy Havoc, Penelope Ford, and Marco Stunt getting spots in this match? Like, it's overkill.
Totally unnecessary. Totally not needed. Jimmy Havoc, I didn't have an issue with that because they kind of let you know that he was going to get involved right from the get-go with the promo. So I expected that. But then Penelope Ford needs to get a spot. And then Marco Stunt needs to get a spot. And then Brian Cage debuts, but they have to bury him under a bunch of bury him under a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Just so Joey Janela could do a Death Valley driver onto the casino chip. And it's just, look, the match could have been fine. Not every match needs to try and be a 5-star match and be 40 minutes long and this big overproduction. Let the guy debut, let him climb up, let him get let people get their spots. But, when people that aren't involved in the match are now getting spots, it's unnecessary.
Right. And I get it. Like the opening match, you're trying to set the tone. You want to get people like really anticipate, like, man, this is good. I can't wait for the rest of the card. But when you try too hard, I think that's what happened here. They just tried too hard to make everything click. And because of that, like there were some lull spots, just let the ones that need to shine. Some guys can get a little bit here and there, but it just seemed like everybody tried to knock it out of the park and no one really stood out at the end. Even Brian Cage. And speaking of Brian Cage, he debuts. He's the mystery participant. You called it. I didn't see Taz getting involved as his manager, but what do you think of the dynamic of Brian Cage and Taz?
Well, once it happened, I actually liked it because Darby, it was Darby who was climbing the ladder or going to be climbing the ladder. Taz comes out and we know Taz was kind of trying to recruit Darby, bring him under his wing so he can manage him or coach him and get him to that next level so he can get that big win. And Darby kept turning him down. So there's that interesting dynamic there. And that's enough storytelling. That could have been like your pivotal moment. Let Brian Cage go in, clear the ring. So I liked it. And I'd like to see future match between the two of them. I think that could be really good. But yeah, just a lot of really good and a lot of really bad. The stuff that was really good was obvious, but then the stuff that was bad, in my opinion, I don't know. I know people are going to probably be upset that we're going in on Orange Cassidy here, but I mean, I just don't get it. You're a professional athlete and you can't figure out how to stand a ladder up because you're quote unquote too lazy to do it.
Right. Like that. Like, come on. I get it. He's lazy. The character of being lazy, and then when he's forced to work, he does work. I'm totally fine with that. It's like a rope-a-dope. Totally fine with that psychology. But when he's going to the commentary table and he says, what is this match? How does this work? And then Excalibur goes, Tony Khan literally told you 200 times how this works. Like, that's not lazy. That's stupid.
Well, not only that, but right after he couldn't figure out or couldn't get the ladder to stand up because God knows why. Right after that, he found the energy to do the spot where he does his suicide dive and the kick up and all that other stuff. So
Yeah.
he had enough energy to exert to get his spot in.
Right.
But he didn't have enough energy or intelligence to stand a ladder up.
But then he later jumps onto the ladder and figures that out and was like inches away from grabbing the chip. I'm like, oh my God, they're actually going to have him win. They're actually going to have him win this thing.
Nope.
But it ends up Brian Cage wins. He'll be facing Moxley at Fyter Fest, which was supposed to be in London. Now, obviously, with everything going on, it's going to happen at Daly's place. There was no date announced on when Fyter Fest is going to happen. But at the media scrum after Double or Nothing, they did say Cage versus Moxley at Fyter Fest. So let's move on to a match that I think stole the show, to be honest with you. And that is MJF versus Jungle Boy. We knew this match was going to be good after what we saw on Dynamite a few months back. But man, you talk about a 24 and a 22-year-old in MJF and Jungle Boy. They wrestled this match like they had 24 years and 22 years experience in the ring, not just being 24 or 22 years old. This was old school wrestling, ring psychology 101. MJF's finishing move is assault to the earth where you have to work on the arm. And he busts Jungle Boy's arm throughout the 17, 18 minutes of this match, and Jungle Boy sells the hell out of it. This match was very, very good. In my opinion, the match of the night.
I agree 100%. I thought this was the best pure wrestling match of the night. Taking the Stampede match out of it because, like we talked about, that's kind of more of a cinematic thing. But a lot of good stuff in here, a lot of good psychology, a lot of good storytelling. It had everything from mat wrestling to chain wrestling to its high spots like the reverse Rana, which on the edge of the apron, which I kind of cringed a little bit because one is.
Does anybody ever watch Will Ospreay taking that bump from Marty Scurll?
Yeah, I know
it's so dangerous.
Yeah. So it is what it is, that part of the match. But I thought this match was awesome. And like you pointed out, two young stars that are going to be, I'd imagine intricate parts in the future of AEW, maybe a future champion, at least in MJF.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was a great old school feel match. Really good.
And it wasn't overbooked. No. Wardlow wasn't even involved in this match at all. We didn't get run-ins from Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt because they're probably, icing off their injuries from the previous match. It was just, to me, the only thing I would say negative about this match, and it's probably nitpicking at this point, was if they're working on the arm so much with the finish, I would have had Salt of the Earth actually finish Jungle Boy. But they didn't even use Salt of the Earth to finish it. And that's not even a bad thing. You don't necessarily have to use your finisher to win a match. And that's what happened here. I'm
glad you brought that up because that's a theme that I've noticed with AEW, especially because, and I mentioned to you this when we were texting back and forth. So he won more or less with some type of, not really a roll up, but some type of
bridge, like a bridge pin.
Something that you wouldn't normally see somebody win a wrestling match with. And later on in the night, we saw Moxley win with what looked to be a sleeper. Basic maneuvers, but I think what's happened over the course of the years is these really, simple moves or transitional moves, or whatever you want to call them, rest spot moves. WWE has kind of conditioned people to think that those moves can't win matches and you have to hit your finisher. There's got to be some type of crazy big spot in order to win a match. And I think what's happened is people have been conditioned to know that's not going to be the finish of a match. So they don't react. There's no suspense. We saw this happen multiple times in the past with AEW. We saw it happen here in this match, and we saw it happen later on in the night with Moxley. I have no issue with guys winning matches that without using their finishing move or whatever you want to call it, signature move.
Right.
So I liked it. I thought this match was great.
Yeah, totally agree. Like I said, match of the night. But let's move on to the match that I think everybody thought was going to be the match of the night. Cody versus Lance Archer to give us our first AEW TNT Championship. Mike Tyson presents the title. I know it's unfinished. At least that's what they're saying. It's an unfinished product. We'll have a finished product hopefully by Wednesday. But that title belt I think a lot of people on social media could agree with me on this. That belt looks like a freaking toy. That looks like something you pick out at Target at the WWE section. That thing looks terrible.
Yeah,
it looks like they just threw it together 5 minutes before the show and goes, okay, Tyson, take this out. And we're like, what the hell? Like, it doesn't even look like real leather. It looks like vinyl. It looks like plastic silver plates put on red vinyl. And red on belts doesn't even look good. Like, they should have learned from WWE. Red belts look terrible. I've never seen, like, it's an ugly belt.
It is ugly. And, you know, I mean, I feel like sometimes, whether it's WWE or other companies, they try so hard to do something that's different. And then you get a product like this.
Yeah.
Like, look, it's supposed to be prestigious. It's supposed to look badass and cool. That is ugly.
Yeah.
I mean, like you pointed out, there's a lot of issues with it, and a lot of people probably agree with it. But as long as they're going to replace it with something more appealing, I guess that's what people want.
Yeah, let's hope that it improves. So let's get into the match itself. Basically, the story of the match is Lance Archer's a monster. Cody's trying to do everything he can to fight back. We get some outside interference from Jake Roberts, outside interference from Arn Anderson. Mike Tyson takes off his shirt, flexes his muscles. Jake Roberts and Arn Anderson get ejected. Cody wins with a couple of crossroads and becomes the first TNT championship. Did I not predict that, or did I not predict that? There was going to be shenanigans in this match, and Cody was going to end up winning because of it.
You did call that. I thought the match, again, another one of those matches that had some good and some bad, up and down, like a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly feel like a lot of Cody's matches are way, way, way too overbooked. Too much going on. There's outside interference. It's either Brandy getting speared through a rail, the guardrail. This one's hitting somebody with a chair, and then this guy's coming out. You saw that Arn Anderson got involved, and then Jake Roberts is going to come out with the snake, and Mike Tyson gets involved. And I knew there was going to be outside interference. But at what point do we just say, look, Cody, you can wrestle, you can have great matches, just go have a match. Like,
right.
MJF did it with Jungle Boy. You don't need all the outside interference. I understand, like, that's a part of professional wrestling. And usually it's the heel manager that's getting involved for whatever reason. It seems like it's always the opposite in a Cody match. Like, It's always somebody in his corner. But, you know, with Cody, and I like him, and I think he's really good, but it's almost overkill. Like, you come out, you cut the good promo. That's great. It's awesome. Then you get the big spectacle entrance, but then you have to have your match where this guy's involved and that guy's involved.
Right.
Just go have the match.
Right. And I get it. It's storytelling. There's obviously Jake and Arn had their thing on Dynamite prior to Mike Tyson. You know that he was going to get involved. It's just storytelling. But like you said, like, we have been seeing this so much with Cody. It's like, can he have any other kind of match? Because every match that he is in, when it's a big match, always seems like there's some outside shenanigans. Against Shawn Spears, outside shenanigans with Tully and Arn. At Full Gear, shenanigans with MJF. Against MJF, shenanigans with Brandy. In this match, it was Arn and Jake Roberts. Like, there's always outside shenanigans.
Well, you go to his match on Dynamite. Who I forget who
it was against Darby.
When she got speared into the
that was Darby, because he pushed Darby out of the way, and Brandy was right behind him.
And then she ended up coming back out, and then with the water bottle, which I didn't even really feed into the ending of the match. Like, just like I was saying, like, just go out there and have a match, man. Like, why is there so much of this going into it? And it really, what happened didn't even necessarily play into the ending that much. Mike Tyson could have gotten involved. Like, Jake could have pulled a snake out from under the ring or whatever the case may have been, and Tyson could have prevented him, and that whole thing could have happened without the whole getting tossed out and Arn Anderson's pulling Archer off the rope.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, there was some good, some bad. I thought there were certain parts of the match that were slow and proddy, and that's mostly because of Archer. I felt like literally there had to have been 5 instances where Archer just stopped and stared into the camera and made like a mean face. It was almost like, dude,
he was trying to draw heat from the viewers.
5 times? He could have established it the first time in the corner when he threw Cody outside.
Yeah, I know.
You know, it just, and I felt like the match had certain spots where it was a little slow and it never really got to that next level that a lot of Cody's matches get to.
Right. Now, do you think that the way this finish happened and the fact that Cody won, do you think this killed the momentum and not necessarily protected Lance Archer in this match?
I'm not really one that says, a person is defined by one night unless it's really bad and really egregious because, for instance, you look at what they do with Brock Lesnar in WWE. He could lose a match the next night. He could come out, beat the shit out of like 10 people and leave people lying in the ring, and he's got his heat back.
Yeah.
I think they can easily do that with Archer. So had this happen like multiple times, like they did with Braun Strowman in WWE, you could probably make the argument that they've kind of buried him and he's lost something. But there's no, and I said this on our pre-show, there's no shame in losing to a guy like Cody.
Right.
He's one of their top guys.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I felt like Archer should have won and should have gone over, but
I don't know, that shovel's starting to get as gold as Cody's hair. Let's just put it that way.
I've already seen people commenting about that. He's Triple H 2.0 and whatever else.
Right. All right. So the next couple matches here, they're very quick, so I don't think we really need to dive too much into them. Kris Statlander beats Penelope Ford in like 5 minutes. Shawn Spears beats Dustin Rhodes in 2.5 minutes. We'll start with Penelope Ford and Kris Statlander. For 5 minutes, it was a good match. Knowing what we will eventually know later on in the night, do you think it would have been actually better for Penelope Ford to win so that they could establish some heels getting some wins?
Yes, but here's the thing. I know that they're saying Britt Baker is injured, but they're setting it up where she's going to come out and make an announcement on Dynamite. So
and pull like a Mark Henry swerve, like, I'm retiring, but I'm really not.
Is it a work? Because does Britt Baker, let me put it to you this way. What would mean more for her character and what would get her more heat? Her actually wrestling at Double or Nothing in an empty arena and getting the win, or going out on Dynamite, faking an injury and then attacking the champion? Me, attacking the champion and faking an injury is going to get you more heat, and that would fit into her character. Now, that's all assuming she's not actually hurt. But when you look at it, right now there aren't many heels if she truly is hurt other than Nyla Rose, but they could always run it back.
That now you bring it up, the fact that it could be all a work, that could certainly work. But if it's not a work, I would have had Penelope Ford take the win here, knowing what we will know eventually in the women's championship match. But I mean, it is what it is. It's not the first time they would book a babyface versus babyface match in AEW, and it happens all the time in wrestling. So not entirely the worst thing, but could have been better if they had Penelope, especially when they're saying she never made the top 5. Beating Statlander probably would have put her in the top 5 and build off that. But for whatever reason, they went with Statlander. But next match, Shawn Spears, Dustin Rhodes. Shawn Spears comes out, goes into the camera, says that Dustin's not coming out. He's retired. And then Dustin Music comes out. Shawn Spears says, nope, just kidding. I had them play it. I had to make you guys think he was really coming out. Then Dustin's music plays again. Shawn Spears is like, wait, only once. Guys, only play it once. Brandy comes out, and then Dustin walks behind Shawn Spears into the camera. I thought that was a very cool setup. I knew they were going to do it, but that was a great execution by Dustin Rhodes there. And match was only 2.5 minutes. I thought the match itself really embarrassed Shawn Spears, which I guess was the intention. Strip him down to his underwear. I don't know why Tully Blanchard is on his crotch, but it is. But here's a guy that he comes, leaves WWE. A lot of people are like, oh, they didn't use him right. He needs to be booked better. And he hasn't been booked good in AEW. He's been losing.
Yeah, he has. But I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, I thought it was funny. Did it necessarily have to happen at his expense? Maybe not, but I guess we're going to have to see what they do with him further down the line. I don't know. I'd like to see him utilized a little bit better, but yeah, like you're right. They haven't done much with him.
Especially after the Shawn Spears news segment, which I thought was good. have him beat Dustin Rhodes, and then carry that into a storyline with Cody for the TNT Championship. Now that he's lost, it's like, wait, you can't even beat Dustin, who's like in his 50s. How do you expect to beat Cody, who's in his 30s and is the TNT champion? I don't know, but it's wrestling. They can make it work. They'll find a way to make it make sense. But let's move on to the women's championship match. Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Shida. I was rooting for Shida. I want her to win. Like I keep saying, she is the best women's wrestler in AEW. She ends up beating Nyla Rose. You called it. The no DQ stuff was what makes Shida win. I thought this was a very good no DQ match. This could actually be the best women's match I've seen in AEW. This was very good. And I think Nyla has come a long way since that first AEW Women's Championship match against Riho. She was very good in this match, and Shida just was good again. Their styles just meshed so well. I'll see them 10, 15, 20 times in AEW. This match was awesome, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought it was very good. And I suspected that it was going to be a no DQ match because they wanted to protect Nyla Rose and give Shida the win, which inevitably was what ended up happening.
Right. So what's next for Nyla Rose? Like, does she go right back to getting a title shot, a rematch? Because we haven't really seen that yet in AEW, where the champion loses and then gets an automatic rematch or becomes the first challenger of the champion. So, I mean, because they haven't really built anybody up, and if Britt Baker's hurt or not, that's probably the only other person I think. But I mean, Nyla Rose, to me, she would be perfect in this situation that we're in right now because she's a good talker. I think she's a very good promo. The fact that she has acting in her background really helps in this situation because now you need those that can talk and act in these non-fan situations to generate some social media interaction. And Hikaru Shida, she's a great wrestler, and she actually has acting background too. But the fact that English is not her first language, and you could tell she's still trying to learn and not very confident in what she's saying yet, I don't think having her be a focal point in like your top storyline, you're going to need someone that could talk to balance this out. Yeah. And yes, it's basically Nyla Rose or Britt Baker. And if Britt Baker's hurt, you're going to basically keep Nyla Rose. So why not just have Nyla Rose keep the title and have Shida chase her throughout the summer?
Yeah, and I think we're going to have to wait and see if somebody ends up turning heel on Dynamite, because if Britt Baker's truly hurt and Nyla Rose isn't going to contend for the title again, right now at least, somebody's got to turn heel. Unless they're going to do face versus face.
Could be Big Swole.
I was thinking that because she was pretty involved, it seemed, that on ringside. She was involved multiple times with various different wrestlers. Whether it was Archer, I think I remember her being involved with him.
Yep. Nyla, she went face to face with Nyla too.
Yeah. So, and my guess is either the Britt Baker injury is either a work or somebody's turning heel on Wednesday.
Yeah. Has to be. It's just a matter of who that's going to be. But the last match we're covering is the AEW World Championship match, Jon Moxley versus Brody Lee. Believe it or not, this match actually was shorter than the previous match, the Women's Championship match. This match only goes 15 and a half minutes. Inadvertently becomes a no DQ match. Basically, it was a match on television that could be as close to Combat Zone Wrestling as you could get without getting too gruesome. And these guys both coming from Combat Zone Wrestling and had matches together in Combat Zone Wrestling. I thought this was a very good, stiff match. I love the spot with the paradigm shift through the stage. I don't know about the finish. Like you pointed out, yes, the sleeper is a great way to show that you don't necessarily have to win with the paradigm shift, but the fact that Brody Lee got paradigm shift through a stage, got paradigm shift again, kicked out at 1, and then another paradigm shift kicked out at 2. It's a great way to protect Brody Lee, which is fine. Protect Brody Lee. That's job well done. But did you bury the paradigm shift in the process?
No, I don't think so. I think it definitely did more for Brody Lee to kick out the way he kicked out, especially after being paradigm shift through the through the stage there, and then multiple times kicking out of one, kicking out at two. Then, I thought that was kind of towards the tail end of the match. Once they went through the stage there, kind of took everything to another level.
Mhm.
I had concerns about Brody Lee losing this match, and I have even more concerns about Brody Lee going forward, especially now, considering we already know he's not going to be contending for the championship. Like, he's out of the picture. Brian Cage, you're in. You're the next guy at Fyter Fest. So I don't think we're going to see Brody Lee contending for the championship.
Right.
That being said, where does he go from here? I think they did the best they could in protecting him. And, if it has to happen at the expense of, Moxley's finisher there, well, there's got to be some give and take.
Right.
So having him kick out multiple times, I didn't necessarily have an issue with it. But I do have concerns for Brody Lee going forward. And I have concerns for the Dark Order because, you bring this guy in from WWE, you put him right in the main event. You tried to promote the Dark Order as this big bad force, and this is the Exalted One. And it was a good match, but where does he go from here? If we know he's not challenging for the title, which they've pretty much told us, Fyter Fest, it's not going to be him. It's going to be Brian Cage.
Right.
Like, where does he go? What does the Dark Order do to get their momentum back?
Dark Order versus the Elite. They were doing that for, right before the new year, they had the Dark Order go against the Young Bucks and that whole ordeal. And that was kind of planting the seed, but then they swerved things around and teasing the Exalted One storyline and all that stuff. So maybe take the Elite versus Inner Circle story on the back burner till, fans are back and they could do blood and guts. And then in the process, do Dark Order versus the Elite. That's a way you could do it. And then you could have Brody Lee eventually go after Cody for the TNT Championship in the process. You could have the Dark Order when they come back from Canada to go after Hangman and Kenny for the tag team titles because they're still undefeated. They really should be the number one contenders, but because they're not there, the Best Friends are the number one contenders. And I mean, those are really the three tag teams right now. I mean, SCU, but they already had the titles and lost them. But I mean, you could rebuild them up, no problem. So I think the Dark Order, I'm not as concerned with the Dark Order because I think there's still roads you could go down, especially if they plan it as the Dark Order versus the Elite. Because let's not forget, Tony Khan said that they are like a big corporation.
Right.
So if you want to do the whole Elite versus the Dark Order, it's basically the Young Bucks and Kenny versus the WWE. And you could tell that story because everyone already says that Brody Lee is a Vince McMahon parody. Tie that in together somehow and make it seem like it's the AEW versus WWE storyline without really being it.
Speaking of tag teams, a little off topic. Did you get a load of the Butcher and the Blade? More specifically, the way the Blade was dressed at ringside.
I thought it was some jobber. I was like, who is this guy? And then I went close up. I'm like, oh, that's the Blade. Holy crap. So, final thoughts here. Best match, worst match.
Best match was definitely, to me, MJF and Jungle Boy. Worst match? Oh, God. Hands down, Private Party and Best Friends. That was an absolute train wreck.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Right. I mean, on the actual main show, MJF and Jungle Boy to me was the best match. The worst match, I probably would go with Shawn Spears versus Dustin Rhodes. Just because, it was 2.5 minutes. They didn't really do anything. And I think they hurt Shawn Spears more than they helped Dustin Rhodes in that match. So, but overall, what'd you think of the show? Do you think it was, best pay-per-view of 2020? Good, okay, or god awful?
I thought it was good. Best pay-per-view of 2020 from what we've seen so far.
It's kind of hard to judge because 3 months of it has been with no fans, but
yeah, there was definitely a lot of good stuff. There was definitely a lot of stuff that I liked in this.
Yeah.
So I definitely think it was good. I didn't come away from this thinking like, oh my God, that was the best pay-per-view I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. But I definitely didn't walk away from this saying, it was terrible. I thought it was good. And I thought the stuff that was supposed to be very good was very good. I thought MJF and Jungle Boy was a really good technical match. And I thought the Stadium Stampede match was fun. So
right.
Those were my highlights.
I mean, to spend $50 on this pay-per-view, I don't know if I would say it was worth all $50, but maybe it was worth 40 or $45. But wasn't a full-blown, hey, definitely worth my $50, but it was still a good show. I was entertained, and overall the show was good. But let us know what you guys think in the comments, what you thought of Double or Nothing. Don't forget to share us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, SCPB Podcast. And for news, reviews, and conversations on all things pro wrestling, subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. For Ralph Valenti, my name's Michael Valenti. Thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psycho Babble.